Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Republic World, where today we have an incredibly special guest joining us. Mr. Vinod Khosla is with us. Now, Mr. Khosla is a Silicon Valley legend. He was a co-founder of Sun Microsystems, and he has, in 2004, started his own venture capitalist fund, Khosla Ventures. He is a very well-known person, Indian abroad, who has achieved considerable success and fame, perhaps at a time even before it became the norm. Mr. Khosla, thank you so much for joining us at this time. First of all, yes, sir. I'd just like to...
happy to be here, though, at this unfortunate time.
I agree, absolutely. My first question was somewhat along those lines. In fact, this whole interview is about the COVID situation in the country, that is India. It can't have been easy for you and for other Indians abroad to watch as we have encountered this second wave and how it's become a crisis. At what point, sir, did you start to think that your own personal intervention was needed? And where did you see yourself contributing?
Well, I think what was surprising is the pace at which all of this came on. I have family in Delhi. 6 weeks earlier, they thought COVID was done. The caseload was very low. And then you see the sudden explosion and the horrific stories you start to hear of hospitals running out of oxygen, people not having beds. It is hard not to feel it, not only as an Indian, but any global citizen would get really, really involved and hopefully do as much as they can to help. Obviously, it's limited what you can do remotely.
And so, because you saw this situation developing and you wanted to help out, I've seen you not only tweeting copiously about it, but you have personally made a very large donation. You and your family have funded up to 10 million to Give India. And I have recently seen a tweet by you where you have listed what Give India has done. So the orders for purchase of 20,000 oxygen concentrators, 14,000 cylinders, the setting up of a COVID care facility at Bengaluru airport, and even more things than that. This is the kind of aid that entire nations are providing the country. Could you just talk us through what your contributions and the wonderful people who are also donating to Give India, what that is resulting in for this country?
Well, you just cited the numbers. They're obvious, a lot of oxygen concentrators, cylinders, even ICU beds being set up. I had started working with Give India a year ago when the COVID crisis first broke. And they were a very good organization. Obviously, you had to make sure an organization you're working with is high quality and has capability to do things in India. They work with other NGOs, so they have a network of NGOs they can work with because it's not just money. It takes sourcing of supplies. The late part of April, when this first happened, even finding concentrators was very hard. And there was all kinds of logistics challenges. Who will fly it over? How do you arrange flights in days, not in weeks? And then the problem of once it arrives in India, what happens next? Who distributes it? Who allocates it? So Give India has been doing a fabulous job of that. And it's been great to see their capability to distribute it. I'll be honest, they can't do everything. I am and they are receiving so many requests. It's hard to keep up with all the requests. But they've done a great job, a lot of resources there, and other people are helping also. Very shortly here, in an hour and a half or so, Priyanka Chopra and I will be doing an Instagram fundraiser for Give India. And so I urge everybody to get involved.
Right. Uh, I mean, I don't think the people who are here can ever be grateful enough for all the help that they have received uh, from Indians such as you abroad, as well as just plain foreign countries who are perhaps devastated at some of the things that they've seen and heard and genuinely feel that this is a global pandemic. One area, sir, where you have a clear expertise is you are one of the most influential venture capitalists around. We've seen in India startups that I'm sure you track quite closely, the Oyos and the Olas. They are going out of their way to also assist citizens. What advice would you give to a startup founder at this point in time where your business is on shaky ground, but then you do also have to do your contribution?
Well, every startup has to look at how much they can offer. Obviously, they have to survive themselves, but they also are in different businesses. So Give India has a joint program with Ola Car, where they are providing oxygen concentrators to homes on request for free, so that people don't hoard one for themselves. They are in a central bank and they can be provided. Oyo Rooms is working with Give India and other organizations to provide isolation centers where people don't have that. And another organization is providing logistics support. Amazon's doing a lot in logistics. Mission Vayu from Amazon is providing free logistics to anybody who has supplies and needs to get them to India. So a number of organizations helping. On the flip side, a number of Indian-related organizations like the Thai organization, which is a startup organization, is also working a lot in fundraising. Various chapters of IITs are doing that. So a lot of people involved, and I think everybody has to do as much as they can, but not feel bad if they aren't able to do much more.
I think that's very wisely put. Sir, at this point, the US in the year 2020 was the worst hit by the coronavirus. And in 2021, it's very clearly India at this moment. While the US seems to be well on the path to recovery, what are the lessons that India can right now learn from the US? What did the US do right?
Well, the biggest difference, of course, was the rate of vaccination. And India is a poorer country. The Western countries were able to procure vaccines very early because they had sufficient funds. But we need to accelerate vaccination. I think that's happening. Needs to go up a lot more. India has a much larger population, so we need to do a lot more vaccination. Beyond that, exactly what you're doing, masking up, not being in large crowds, not being in venues where you can transmit it to other people, because proximity to other people is what causes this to happen.
You've so far given me the impression that you have it's spot on as to the challenges that the country faces. For instance, you have flagged the logistical issues. So a person makes a big donation, you can order everything you want, but you still need to reach it to the last mile. Um, if you were to decide what for India would you plan to do in the short term, the medium term, the long term, what would your advice be?
Well, the short term, we clearly need to get more supplies to, especially the rural areas, and the disease is moving to rural areas, so that's hard. There's not as many ICU beds and facilities in rural areas. We need to stop the gatherings and stop transmission to other people. That's the short term. So the immediate thing is getting supplies, not to hoard stuff, to share it like Give India and Ola Car are doing. And the next step becomes take preventive measures longer term, which is vaccinations. close to a billion people needing vaccinations is a non-trivial logistical challenge. It's very hard, whether you're a NGO or a government. People have to be patient with it, and it needs to happen slowly. Longer term, we need to put much more stringent surveillance mechanisms to catch pandemics early and to stop them, do lockdowns early. Obviously, a national lockdown would help, but it's never easy. It's never easy because people's livelihoods depend on it. They need jobs to feed themselves. And so it's not an easy decision to make, but I do believe a lockdown would be a very good idea nationally.
All right, fair enough. My second to last question, sir. Now, since the coronavirus pandemic broke out, there has been a lot of talk, and some of it is political, about who is to blame, what is the origin, what is the nature of the virus. We saw just yesterday the British Prime Minister saying that in the next year he would be okay for a public inquiry into his government's handling of the pandemic. Where do you stand on this quest to determine and to apportion blame, and to maybe have an inquiry on China or the WHO or any of these?
Well, it doesn't help to apportion blame. It does help to look at what we could have done different and how we could have prepared for something like this. So that's very, very important. I think the even more immediate thing is to monitor the evolution of the virus strains and make sure the vaccinations keep up with the evolution of the virus. I think that's the most important thing we have to look for. There'll be plenty of time for blames, but really, most likely it's a natural origin. It can't be prevented, but we can take precautions to prevent transmission.
All right. And finally, if you wouldn't mind, sir, if I were to ask you for a message for all the Indians here who are battling the coronavirus second wave.
The message is pretty simple. A lot of people doing everything they can to help. If you're in the middle of it, it is very frustrating, but patience is required. The frontline workers, the NGOs, even the governments are trying to do their best. And not everything will be perfect. Not everybody can be supported. That's very, very unfortunate. But to your listeners, when they can and they can contribute to easing the situation, that's where they can help the most. And for those suffering, clearly for those who have suffered and are suffering.
I think, sir, on the whole, everything that you've said to me has communicated a sense, and with everything else that is going on, I think what Indians probably glean from this is that we are definitely not alone in this. We have countries helping us. We have people such as yourselves who live abroad, but very clearly your heart beats for what's happening around here. And so I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you. And best of luck for all of your efforts. Your fundraiser that's coming up with Priyanka Chopra, best of luck for that, and to Give India as well. And hopefully, sir, we'll be past this and we'll be able to speak again in better times.
Thank you very much.